Writing Critiques.
Hello and welcome to Writing Critiques. My name is Vin, and this is the channel where we critique writing from around the internet. If you want to submit your writing, you can email the link down below. But this week, we are looking at something from Reddit. Let me see if I can bring up the info. You'd think after this many videos, I'd remember to frickin' bring up the info before I start the recording process, but apparently I'm an idiot. So anyway, this is a piece by Reddit user AllMyBeets. It is posted on Fantasy Writers. It is genre fantasy. And why is my wallet opening? That's bad. All right. And it is a piece named Longtooth, and this is the first chapter of it. So Longtooth, chapter 1, AllMyBeets on Reddit. Let's jump straight into it. I have already got my that's something I got unprepared at least. My AI assistant rolling, so she's going to start her reading, and if you want to read along you can, or you can mute her if you wish. In 3, 2, 1.
1. Boy. It was a voice that had commanded armies. John froze in place, limbs locked mid-run. He was breathing hard, the taste of salt on his lips and grass stains on both his knees. Pivoting on his heel, he turned and peeked down the hall. His godmother was sprawled across a low couch in the sunroom, the mosaic windows painting her in fractal colors. She motioned him in with a finger. He tried to flatten his hair and straighten his misbuttoned shirt as his feet obeyed. It was the height of summer and the air was syrup-thick in the sunroom. Plants from foreign tropics swallowed every shelf and snaked across the ceiling. Emerald greens twined with rust red, ribbons of yellow, petals of crimson and azure. "Yes, godmother," John said, still breathless from his sprint through the valley. "Having fun?" she asked his grass-stained knees. John's hands went cold. He looked at his feet, sending his sweat-damp curls flopping across his face. "Yes, godmother." She might have been pretty when she was young with her ink-black hair and dusky skin. That was before her life happened. Her face was a story of scars that pulled and twisted when she smiled at him. Or, the glow of young love. "How far through the Silk Hands manual have you and Adam gotten through?" John's face boiled, his shoulders inching towards his ears. "I'll take that as a first chapter only, then?" John tugged on one of his ears. "One of these days, boy, I''M.M.A. have to teach you how to lie. I'm a she, I can't lie." "Well, I'm a bronzeman," she said, pointing him to the wicker chair across from her. "And I'm very good at it, and I can tell you that the best lie is just the wrong truth." She poured him a tall glass of sangria. John perched on the edge of the chair, feeling it bite into the back of his thighs. He reached for the glass and gazed down at his wine-stained reflection. "What protection are you using, godmother?" She arched a thick black eyebrow at his tone. "Don't think I'm old. I don't remember what an idiot I was at your age. You don't need to add fatherhood to your school load." "We're both boys, godmother." "Boy, I gave birth to fraternal triplets and one of them's a werewolf." "Don't tell me what's possible and not. She are dimorphic and he's a green blood." "Never mind whatever demigod traits your father passed on to you. Do you want to go to university or do you want a baby to burst out of your head Athena style? Have it all figured out, have ya?" "It's not that complicated." She didn't laugh. She cackled. Head thrown back, her whole body convulsing with mirth. When breath and reason returned to her 5 husbands, 3 wives, 15 mistresses, and untold scores of lovers, each more complicated than the last. "Thought I had myself figured out, then I went through the 7 trials of the Valor. Love is complicated. Lust is an endless pit. Now is the time to ask an embarrassing questions because, and trust me on this, boy, you don't want to go through your second sexual awakening in the middle of invading a country." John reached for his sangria. The glass was cold, condensation dripping from the cup onto his pale legs. He tasted blackberries and the burn of rum as he gulped down half the glass. "There is one question I've been wanting to ask you," he said. He raised his eyes to meet hers, glacial blue to sticky green. "Why are you my godmother?" He clicked her tongue. "Anything to not talk about vaginas, huh?" She rose from her chair, one leg stiff as she walked to the hidden liquor cabinet under an orchid stand. The drink she poured him was coral green and smelled of apples and the sea. "Do you know how I met your father?" John shook his head. "I know you broke his curse. I met him because of it. Your father cursed was to sail the 9 seas, and I needed someone who knew how to sail the 9 seas. I had to make a deal with a siren to even get his name. Then I made him a fool's deal. Ferry me around the known and unknown world and I would put his feet back on land. If I failed I would join his crew. 30-odd years, she counted on her fingers. 6 wars? No, 7, and 1 encounter with a sentient island. Later I was sitting in Camelot talking with the Queen of Summer. Only the Summer Queen could break your father's curse, but she said no, so I installed a new queen. My mother. Bear saved all his smiles for her. Ariadne wasn't in line for the throne, not even a little bit. Onion had been ruled since Arthur's time by a succession of vengeful daughters. Gloriana sat the throne since the Industrial Revolution, and her daughter, Leto's mother, was more than eager to backstab her way into a crown. And people think the Seeleys are the nice ones. She shook her head at the ignorance of the world. Gloriana was supposed to be my godmother, did you know that? John shook his head. She rejected me as defective. My eyes were the wrong color, they weren't the same as my father's or mother's. Meant I was a freak of nature. She grinned like a shark, all teeth and no mirth. Gloriana rejected my first offer of freeing your father, so I made her a second deal. Step down, denounce all your heirs, and live a quiet simple life somewhere far away, or I would remove her and all her heirs from the line of succession. She liked the deal less, but her daughter had more sense and accepted it after slitting her mother's throat. Still, I couldn't trust Deidre to keep her word. So when you were born a few years later I was named your godmother. To keep me safe? Partially. An attack on you would be like an attack on one of my own children, and the Queen of Air and Darkness learned that was a bad idea a decade before. You should have learned about that in school, haven't you? John nodded. They make you sound like a tyrant. I was a tyrant. I conquered and united the whole of a realm under my banner. Put swords in the hands of boys younger than you and marched them into war. Installed puppet kings, assassinated leaders that wouldn't bend the knee, burned cities to the ground. But, the God King? Yes, nothing turns a tyrant into a hero like a soul-eating monster from the dark depths. But saving the world doesn't wash the blood from my hands. She pulled up the sleeves of her shirt. Rows of black dots ran up the inside of both arms in rows of 3. Every child I couldn't save. She pointed to one, identical to the rest, in the middle of them all. Alri has. A Valmir girl of maybe 8. Remian centurions rode through her village. Killed all the men, took all the food, left the women and children to starve. She'd been raped, the injuries had gone septic by the time we got there. The history books will talk of heroic deeds and necessary sacrifices. But she is my legacy, John. And her name will die with me. A cloud passed across the sun. In the faded light John studied the slumped form of his godmother. There's another reason, she said after the cloud had passed and sunlight filled the room. You're like me. I'm not, he said, and winced when he said it too fast, too vehemently. She took no offense but looked at him with a sadness he was too young to understand. Your father was the last of his bloodline. Now there's you. There are special bloodlines, ancient ones like mine, that stretch back to when the world was small and simple. When we still made blood sacrifices. There used to be more. The Harfoot, Issachar, Zephyrini, Colfren. The Order of the Sacred Sword in their backwards brilliance exterminated most of them. Maybe a half-dozen are left now. A half-dozen for the Fates to choose from. Fates?
I could stop there. Alright. Where do I start? Okay, sure. I have recently done a video where I really strongly criticized someone for having a lower dump on front. This similarly has a lower dump on front. And I freaking hate it. I hate lore dumps up front. It actually started really well. Like, boy, it was a voice that had random armies. John froze in place, limbs locked mid-run. And you do a lot of really good... Your writing is actually quite good. Your description is solid, and I use pretty good metaphors. I could picture the kind of most of it. I feel like it kind of drops away as the piece goes on, and I kind of lost the sense of place. So you need to remind readers more through it of where we are in terms of just pure, like, just in terms of like your story, your wordsmithing. I think that's your only real fault here. I I'm sorry that there must have been a bit missing. I'm not sure if the version posted had a chunk missing kind of out of middle, but I felt it got tripped up somewhere around here. Where here you can see this double space there. I think there was something there that must have gotten tripped up, and I was kind of confused. I was lost in the ether somewhere when they started talking about babies and heads popping out, and babies popping out of heads and a bunch of shit like that. So I'm going to ignore that, and I'm just going to say maybe it's my fault or from copy pasting it or something. Not sure, but the overall thing I have to say here is I'm not sure who the hell is the main character and why I should care about anything going on. Part of that is because you're lore dumping, and as I said, I'm not sure if I said this in the previous video, but part of the problem with lore dumping is it doesn't relate to the main character and his plot or her plot, and therefore it all feels like I'm wasting time spinning my wheels waiting for something fucking germane to happen. And nothing germane happens in the entirety of this freaking chapter, at least until I hit stop. Maybe something happened just after that, but I was bored, so I stopped it. Again, your writing's not bad. It's the storytelling that I have a problem with here. Your backstory isn't actually that bad, and you're not too heavy-handed with it like the previous one, which I did recently. But nothing of it matters. Why am I hearing about the grandmother? Is the grandmother the main character or John? Like it starts with, let's have a look. Let's go up here. John froze in place, limbs locked around, he was breathing hard. Like, it feels like John is your POV character, and yet this whole chapter is about the grandmother, pretty much. Like, I don't know much about John at all, aside from the fact that he's he inherits her powers. He's a she thing that can be all weird when it comes to sexuality and fluid, and that's all fine. Like, whatever floats your boat. But how is that important? I guess you're getting to it, but he's the same as her, and she is some kind of crazy power that's able to unseat an unseelie queen. Seelie queen. So you're setting up some level of power there, but again, why does that matter? And also, like, I still have no sense of scale because I don't know your universe yet. Is this the same as our understanding the she or not? Because she says that her ability to unseat a Seelie queen is said so flippantly that it degrades the power of the queen herself, and therefore I don't care. Maybe it's as simple as, I don't know, maybe this chicken touched iron and all she did was stab her with something iron and it was done. Like, fuck, I don't know. I don't know how easy or hard that was because you haven't established the world yet, and I'm not grounded yet. So all of these things are just being said and with no real grounding or meaning. The only way for the reader to describe the meaning is to bring our own thoughts about what the mythos is to your work, which shouldn't be what you're relying on because you're clearly doing some customization here. Not only are you customizing the mythos, or at least it appears like you're customizing mythos, but we also, like, other elements of this is also equally important. Like, I have no sense of time. Like, you say the Industrial Revolution, but and I highlighted it because I was like, okay, this is. Then you use sangria as well. You're hinting at this being modern, like the modern era, but set in she, which is what Jim Butcher would call it. I'm not sure what you're calling it in this. It's like the Never Never, the she. I don't know, whatever he calls it, the Never Never or the she. So setting it in the Never Never. I'm just going to use Jim Butcher's words. But in a modern time is kind of what the feeling got from this, but it was never confirmed. So I don't really have. So you're launched into your book. I don't know what period it is, even in its own time scale. I don't know what period it is. I don't know what power level anybody is, which is probably questionable when it comes to epic fantasy. I know more about their sexuality than any other element of John's character, which personally I think is bass backwards. I should know who John is before I care anything about his ability or not to love. Same with the fairy queen, not the fairy queen, the godmother, right? So not the same, but like, I don't know who she is or why I should care, and her just telling me how amazing she is doesn't make me care about her or tell me anything about her aside from the facts of her past and the fact that she's happy to gloss over large periods of time and brag about how powerful she is. That's not something I care about either. Neither of these are characteristic moments. I don't know either. Like, yeah, just top to bottom. Like, it is not your writing quality. It is your storytelling quality that I find doubtful. And maybe the people in the chat, sorry, not in the chat, in the comments below and on Reddit will disagree with me. But if I was to recommend a path towards improvement, because I don't want to just end it there, I would say start by giving the main character, whoever it is, because I still don't know which fucking one of these characters it is. Start by giving the main character a goal and have them work towards that goal. Achieve it or not, up to you. But have them work towards that goal and show us something about them in the process. Don't open with just telling us a bunch about characters and definitely not about the world. And when I say telling, I mean having a character really say it out loud, or actually just info dumping in cold, hard text. Like, have it be around them like it would be naturally. Have everything happen naturally and organically through the progress of the plot towards that first character goal. That would be how I recommend to improve this. I would just cut all of this. Like, this would not be anything close to what I'd find readable and publishable. Not the elements of the plot, but the delivery in that case. You can keep all this backstory and stuff in terms of in your lore document. And maybe this is your lore document, in which case I'm being over mean, but I'd keep this aside and rewrite, starting with a goal and giving a character some difficulty in achieving that goal and watching them achieve it. That's how I'd start. If you want a cool example of having a backstory be in the background, so and this is definitely a case where the backstory is definitely in the background because it's not important to the scene at all, except that it is, which is the perfect way to do it. If you look at Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, Book 1, Scene 1, i.e. the prologue, it is just a man walking through a house finding another man who has gone mad. And it does so much backstory and so much world building, whilst also having almost nothing to do with the world and the backstory. That scene is about those two men talking, and that's it. But it's done so well. To be fair, like, we can all compare ourselves in a poor light to fucking Robert Jordan, who's an all-time great. But still, like, if you want an example of how to do backstory, serving its purpose as backstory and not being the main thrust of your first chapter, have a read of that, see how you feel. Or something close to home, a lot of people would maybe hint at not the first chapter of Harry Potter, but the moment Dumbledore enters the scene, / McGonagall, if you include the cat. The moment Dumbledore enters the scene, that's when the engine of that book really starts. And if you watch how that does backstory, because it's telling you a bunch of shit about magic and a bunch of stuff, but doing it in the background while the scene is playing out, that's how you should aim to start this. Start anything, in my humble opinion. And that is, after all, my opinion, because this is my goddamn channel. But if you disagree, which you very well may, and again, his writing's not bad, it's just my disagreement with what he's writing rather than how he's writing it. Yeah, if you disagree, leave your comments below or contact the author directly. Again, this is AllMyBeets, and he posted it, or she posted it, either one, to fantasy writers on the subreddit on reddit.com, and the link will be in the description below. This is from, actually no, sorry, that's not it. That's not all of it. That's Longtooth. Which one's this one? Not Millennium Rights. Not Fate of Glory. Not Shores of the Ash. Not I of Tumblr. Let's see. No, this is Longtooth. Yeah, it's Longtooth. Sorry. Yeah, I was right. All my beats at fantasywriters.com. At fantasywriters on reddit.com. So let her or him know how much you liked it, because I didn't. And so be that force for change you want to see in the world, or the kindness you want to see in the world, because you're not going to get it from me. Thank you for listening, and see you guys next time.